Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
So if you look around your workspace, your living space, maybe it's disorganized, maybe it's massively disorganized. You just feel like you're a mess. It's all cluttered. Or you just think to yourself, that's the way I am. It's always been that way. I've been a mess. I'm cluttered. It's never going to change. I'll clean this up and it'll become a mess later. That's not what you are. There's a reason that we live in disarray and disorganization. Wait until you hear the reason and what we do about it. And we've talked about this before. We're kind of recapping with her. She is an energy healer, professional organizer. Never met anybody like her that puts these two things together. Emily Guderian is back with us. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Good to see you, Steve.
You too. So we're not slobs.
Mm-mm. No, we're stuck. We're stuck in clutter loops. And the thing that keeps you stuck is unresolved negative emotion. Like, who knew? And actually, I didn't know. I didn't know for the first, 9 months of my business. It became pretty obvious the more homes I got in that there was something there that was stuck for people, and it was keeping them in these loops of clutter. And it was kind of overwhelming and frustrating their life. So interesting little thing to stumble upon, right?
Yeah, you blend the pro organization side of you with we call it the energy side, and there's a direct correlation, which is like a shocker. Um, what is keeping us stuck?
It is different for everybody, but the thing that is the same is it's negative. It's a negative emotion. And usually it comes from an event that is unlikely. And it's the thing that we just keep replaying over and over and over again. Once you identify it, once you release it, then it's gone. Then you have other things that replay because, we're human and there's no shortage of material to work with.
So would that mean that those of us who are more disorganized than the others, does that mean that they've had more trauma that they've dealt with?
Not necessarily. For me, the trauma doesn't show up as disorganization. The trauma will show up in my body. So it's just how the trauma shows up for some people.
Well, I'm not going to say I'm super organized, but I think I'm relatively good. But I attribute that to being a Virgo. And that's kind of one of the traits that we're a little more slightly anal retentive. Let me
Right.
let me interject here. I'm a reformed Virgo. I'm not like I was. I let a lot of it go, the perfectionism, all of that stuff. But I believe I'm less cluttered than maybe other people or the average person. But I know I've dealt with stuff when I was younger. Call it the little T traumas, maybe some big T's and all of that. Um, I wonder if that has anything to do with it. The astrological sign to help mitigate some of the clutter. I don't know.
That's an interesting question. I don't have any data on that, but I'm kind of curious. I that's a great question. I don't know.
Yeah, but then again, maybe because of the Virgo is more organized, if you will, that puts more stress on somebody if they are dealing with that trauma stuff. It's kind of
Right.
maybe a vicious cycle. I don't know.
Well, or if they haven't let go of the perfectionist tendencies and all of that stuff that over time gets really hard to manage personally.
Yeah, for sure.
It's exhausting. Perfectionism is exhausting, and
I
it's
let
not serving us. It
I let
really
a lot
does
of it
not
go.
serve people.
It totally doesn't. But where does it come from?
Trauma.
A trauma. It's true. It's true. Yes. When we talk about these traumas, what are we talking about? Just to illustrate and give somebody kind of a reference point.
Well, I will say this, trauma, whether it's a big T trauma or a little T trauma, it's never about the event. In my energy
Mm,
teachings that we go through, and I'll actually walk a client through this. We talk about a circle on one side, and that is first circle, and that's just where the event happens. An event happens. It could be any event. It could be a hard event, a painful event, a joyous event. The suffering, the pain, the things that keep us stuck happen over in what I call second circle, which is all the things that we have to say about what happened. That's where the trauma comes from. It's really not about the event, because each person handles an event differently. So it's always what we say about the event that causes us suffering. And that's the part that keeps us stuck. And what will happen is we will subconsciously reaffirm whatever it is that we're having to say in all of these different variations of events throughout our life. So I've used this example before of where I stubbed my toe, and that was that was a painful event. But what I said about myself in the moments of that event was, I'm so clumsy, I'm so stupid, this stuff always happens to me. And then, probably a little bit of anger for whoever left something out that I tripped on. And then what's really interesting is, until I cleaned that up, I continued to bump into things, or I continued to have events where I could be right, where I was so clumsy, I was so stupid, and this always happened to me. So it's really fascinating how I think, what is it? Confirmation bias, I think, is another word for it, where if you believe something, you will continue to look for and maybe subconsciously create situations where you can be right about whatever it is you said. I'm so stupid, I'm so clumsy, this always happens to me.
Well, isn't it what do they say? The energy goes where the focus goes, or something like
Yeah,
that.
right, for sure. Yeah,
Mm.
and there's a focus there. And what's really remarkable is it doesn't take therapy, it doesn't take prolonged effort to clear it out. It's remarkable how the universe works in that. You just address it, surrender it, release it. For me, and for my clients, we turn things over to our higher power, and that's different for everybody. So release it, turn it over to the higher power, and then
Wow.
it really is gone. It is just that easy.
Wow. We've talked about manifesting before, and it's believed that if you manifest something, you dream it, you believe it, it can materialize. And people have done this. I've heard from people that have manifested perfect car, perfect partner, all of that stuff. Sounds like what you're talking about. You
Right.
stub your toe, could be a one off. Yeah, it happens, bumped into something. And now
But
I'm a
I
klutz.
was, yeah, I was going to say the other side of that is sometimes that brain chatter is the thing that keeps you from receiving. So you can manifest, but if you subconsciously can't receive, it won't materialize. It won't show up for you. And that happens a lot too.
Especially with abundance.
Right. That, yeah, nailed it for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, like I have friends that one in particular, always says, I'm never gonna have enough money. I'm never gonna have enough money to buy a car. I'm always struggling. I've got 3 jobs. I believe for her that comes from her ex and also from her mom.
Right.
And
Her
we
belief system.
her belief system. And we've all heard it, what parent hasn't said, what are you doing? What do you think money grows on trees? Come on. Right away we've been programmed to scarcity, never enough money. So then you go on believing that, then other things show you, let's say an ex, you got to be careful with money, we're never going to have enough money. And then you go on believing that I'm never going to have enough money. Guess what?
You never have enough money.
Exactly.
Or the belief that you have to work for everything that you get.
Mm.
That's almost like a denial of grace, the principles of grace and mercy, not the religious principles of grace and mercy, but the
Sure.
universal principles of grace and mercy, that you have to earn or work for everything that you get. That is a big belief system around money.
That's a sucky one.
Yeah. Talk about pain and suffering
Oh my
right
gosh. And
there.
where did that one come from? And I'm not taking anything away from parents, because we're
Yeah. I
parents.
mean, that's where we get it.
That's where we get
Thank
it.
goodness we have parents to kind of guide us through, but we take on their belief systems. Some of us never really pull away from those. We hold on to some of those belief systems our whole lives.
Well, yeah. And where does it come from? The parents before,
Right.
the parents, and that
And in
you,
that way, we are connected to the whole of humanity because we've got some remnant, some vestige of an ancient belief system.
that goes back generations. For
Right.
example, the generation that went through the Great Depression and thereafter, that was, you need to keep working hard. You need to work hard, hard, hard. And that
And
got
save
passed on.
everything.
And save everything. Oh my gosh, let's people are like in their 70s and 80s, even though they may be fairly well off, they're very careful about their spend,
Right.
and they don't need to be, in my opinion, to certain people. Where did that come from? Came from their
Belief systems
parents.
that were just all programming. It's all programming.
Right, right. And then there's guilt. Like, oh, well, if I don't work hard, then I feel guilty because I didn't provide for my family. But yeah.
Or in my world, I see the guilt in that I have this thing that I purchased with the hard-earned money. I can't get rid of it. And so there's guilt connected to like donating or selling or just
Uh,
getting rid of an item that no longer serves. Like because that was purchased with hard-earned money, you can't get rid of it. Like there's a rule, an unwritten rule somewhere that you can't part with it. So I see
mm.
that a lot too.
It's interesting. I broke the mold of, I mean, I didn't have a lot when I was a kid. So I even made some of my own toys. And when I wanted to get into broadcasting, I taught myself electronics so that I could build a mixer, didn't have a
Oh,
microphone. I busted open a cassette recorder and took the microphone out of there
way to
and
go,
figured it all
nerd.
out. Yes. And it's interesting. That's how I got my first job, because I made up tapes doing that with the equipment that I built out of nowhere. And if you see this studio, I've wired everything. I've built half of it. Why? Because I can. But there came a point where if I need a connector, I need a wire or something like that, I would just solder it myself. I'll make it. I'll put it together. And it came to a point where and I think that comes from the scarcity mindset. It came to a point I'm like, blanket. I'm going on Amazon. I'm just gonna say it's $8. It'll be here tomorrow. I had to break free of that because I could use
Yeah.
that time I could use somewhere else instead of breaking out a soldering iron and making it myself. So you
Yeah.
got
The
to
whole
break free.
that scarcity stuff is no joke. So you
Yeah,
just overwrote the program.
I did. You got to be careful though, because then it can get very convenient. Hey, I'll just order something else. Yeah, I'll just keep ordering something else. If you saw my Amazon purchases, and I think they're all needed, it's kind of crazy. Um, Tell me a story about working with somebody who you identified had some energy that was, and I'm talking about in the organizational area, or their workspace, living space, whatever, that was holding them back.
I had a client who struggling in her work. She's self-employed, and the flow of clients had kind of slowed to a trickle. And I went into her home. She invited me in, and she had two rooms for two different types of businesses that she would do. What was really fascinating is the one that had the office, that had the desk and the computer. That room spoke volumes to me. That room had really low energy. What was remarkable is that the energy was kind of just drilled in on one specific piece of furniture. And I said something to this client, like, number one, we need to switch rooms so that your desk, that it's in this room and everything else is in this other room. And then secondly, we need to get rid of this desk. I don't know what we put in its place. It doesn't matter, but this desk is the epicenter of all the negative stuff. And that's what she kind of laughed. And she's like, oh, that desk is so old. I bought it used. I don't even know where it came from. Like, oh, that's very interesting. So it's a card table, and that suits her better than that desk for whatever reason. But the energy of things, I didn't always know that I could do this, but the energy of things really, really affects people in very subtle ways and also actually very profound ways. But it's not something that you would just automatically assume that, oh, my trickle of clients is due to the low energy of this piece of furniture. Who thinks that? But it was
No,
there. It presented itself. It was obvious to me. And the
I
truth,
get it. The
yeah,
bad
it's
energy.
crazy.
But, but was there any way to sage that piece of furniture to get rid of the bad energy?
In this case, no. But there was another piece of furniture in that room that we did. We did an energy cleanse on that, and that does go into another part of the house. But for whatever reason, this desk, it had served its time, its purpose, its usefulness, and we were finding a new home for it.
Wow. How do you do that?
I don't know. I go into these homes and I do my own personal work. I do my own inner work. And when I go into these homes, I can read the energy of the person, but I can also read the energy of the things. And sometimes it's just a placement issue. In this case, it was not a placement issue. It was an actual piece of furniture issue, but I hear it. I hear it in my mind. Um, you know, and it's almost as though the house or the home or the space is offering up information that benefits the person who resides there. It's kind of beautiful, but
Wow.
it kind of makes me a weirdo too. So I don't know what to do with this except help people. And when I do it, I love it. I really do love how that feels to be a partner with somebody in transformation. It's what it is.
It's kind of scary in a way that the furniture in this office was used. Great condition, served a purpose. Kind of makes you wonder.
Yeah, we're made of the same stuff. It doesn't have the same will as human, but we're made of the same stuff, and there is an energy. And for whatever reason, I read that energy as images. I read that energy as words, language in my mind. It's um, it's
Hmm.
readable.
Can you do that by way virtually with a video?
I can, and I have. I didn't know I could do that until I tried it. Oh my goodness, it works there too. I think for me, the key is that it's not like I walk into every room and I have that experience. When the person who's responsible, whether it's the homeowner or the renter or the business owner, when the person who's responsible for that space asks me to help, so their intention is that I do that, then I think that's when the free flow of information happens. I'm there
Let's
for a purpose, and it's like the room recognizes that I'm there for a purpose, and that purpose is to help whoever occupies that space.
let's say that you have space that was occupied by somebody, let's say maybe a bad employee. You found some things out, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
They're gone, but they occupied the space. Can you potentially sage the area or do something to eradicate the negative energy?
Absolutely. And that's actually quite easy. Anybody can do that. So we talked in an earlier podcast about cutting cords. You
Hmm.
can do that. Saging the room helps. Incense is a purifying thing, and that can help as well. And then I just go in and do energy cleanses on certain spaces when it's needed.
Hmm. So what else can you tell us about this whole correlation between organization and the energy?
Um, the thing I think I really want to convey is how it affects people. So I've had clients where we've organized the dining room, and all of a sudden they're inviting friends over and having meals together and activating a social aspect of their life that had been dormant and kind of, affecting them, making them sad, making them isolated. There was a time where I worked on a spare bedroom that had belonged to a child. That child had grown up and no longer lived in that house. And as we worked on that space, the relationship between the parent and the child shifted. Now, that's kind of different. I've had plenty of offices. I've done a lot of organizing with papers, and business changes, productivity increases, clients come when we do organizing and we address the energetic side of all of these rooms. It's interesting.
It's scary too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, and the fix is just one of these things we've never ever really considered. And like I said, I didn't start off. I've had these energy tools for over a decade. They were for me, they were for my family, for my loved ones. It never occurred to me to start a business organizing and using my energetic tools. It just kind of evolved because clients needed it. The problem presented, I had a solution, and oh my goodness, it works. It works better than anything I could have ever come up with on my own.
It started with the organization business.
Hmm. Yeah.
Was the energy thing already present in your life or that came
Yes.
after?
The energy thing was already present in my life.
Wow.
I've had those tools for over a decade. Only a couple of years ago, I had the inspiration to open a business. And I didn't understand that in that moment that the energy tools that I had already learned would meld so beautifully with the physical sorting, decluttering, editing work that I do in organizing.
I've told a lot of people about you and how the cluttering aspect of their lives or our lives is correlated to the traumas in our past. And every time I share that, it's not a blank stare that I get from people. It's a, oh, and they're thinking about it. Hmm. They're putting it together. And I don't think they, or many of us, ever put those two things together.
Mm-mm. No, nor did I. But, I look at other organizers, and I don't mean to bash other organizers. I love this industry of organizing, but a lot of organizers, they count on their repeat clients. What I do is when we address the energetic side, I don't go back. And it's not because they don't want me. It's not because I've done something in any way. It's because the original trigger for that clutter is gone. And now they have these tools and they can use them for another space. These tools have massive crossover for all the things that cause us upset that crop up in life. All the things.
When they've made that connection to the trauma, does lives change in terms of being cluttered? Are people just refocused on straightening things up automatically once that's all figured out?
It becomes almost it just becomes a natural thing. They don't even think about it. So the disorganization was something that they were faced with every single day. It kind of hit them in the face as soon as they would wake up. The release of the trigger emotion creates it so they don't even think about it. It's just a natural way of being.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow.
Weird.
It's
And
like,
very, very cool. And very like this can transform the entire industry when you address it in this way. And not only just this industry, all of the things that upset us in life. I don't know about you, I have quite a few things that upset me in life. I use these tools and it's just a gentle shift.
well, not to take anything away from other professional organizers, but
Right.
here
No, I
they
don't
are.
want to do that.
They're helping clients and,
Sure.
clean up the workspace and uh, showing you don't really need this, you don't need that. Hey, put this over there. And that's all good. However, it's like medicine. It's you didn't go to the root of the problem. You fixed the symptom, and that's wonderful. But the problem is going to come back because we didn't go to the beginning, which is the
Mhm.
trauma.
Right. Many times that it does come back.
Wow.
Many times. And
Yeah.
I've actually had that with my own clients. In the beginning, I had clients, we didn't do any of the energy side of it at all. And I've gone back and they're back in clutter. Not because there's something wrong with them or there's weakness in them. It's just whatever we did, it kind of, it was a band-aid. It helped for a time, but we didn't really help that person with whatever it is that was driving that behavior.
Mm. It's always amazing talking with you. And we've talked about a lot of this in the very beginning.
I've enjoyed it.
Same, but it's like I take little pieces and get better understanding every time we get together, and things come clearer. How does somebody find you?
You can find me on the socials, on Instagram and Facebook. It's at Built to Be Visible. I have a website. It's builttobevisible.com. And, I roll old school. We can do phones, and that's 480-221-8874.
I'm so tired of not talking to people. It's like after a while, it's like, I just want to talk to somebody. I don't want to go through the prompts and all of that. Wonderful talking with you, Emily.
Thank you. Likewise.
I'm so on your page with all of this, and not because we get together here. It's in my journey. A lot of this is what I've learned, and then you crystallized all of it. So I appreciate that.
It's been a life-changing journey for me as well, not just on the organizing side, but in all the things.
Gotcha. All right. I appreciate it. Somehow we'll connect again sometime soon.
I look forward to it.
Same. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.